Alright, and welcome back to Skyrim Survival. A playthrough of Skyrim. I don't know how many times I've started playing this game. It's been maybe like 5? It's gotta be about less than 10, but more than 5 at this point. Alright, so we're reading every single book we can get our hands on in this game. And since we are in Whiterun, there is a ton of books here, so I think the majority of this episode is going to be me reading all of these books. Or at least as long as I do have some rules in place. That I will not read a book if it is a volume, like a volume 3. I can't read that until I read volume 1. So yeah, that's going to be me doing that. So we've already read that one, I know. I have a spreadsheet, so I know what I have read before. So, okay. And I think I already read the third timeline era. Let me double check. The third era. Yeah, I already read that one. I think I read the Book of Daedra. Yep, I read that one. Troll Slaying. I don't think I got Troll Slaying. No, I did not. Alright, that'll be up next. Troll Slaying by Finn. Oh, I wonder if that's F-I-N-N in reference to, like, Finn. When did Adventure Time come out? This was 2011. When was Adventure Time? That was 2010, so it is possible this might have been a reference to Adventure Time. Just in that spell. Hello, fellow traveler, and welcome to this guide. Within these pages, I will explain everything you need to know about fighting trolls, including how to negate their amazing healing powers and how to best take advantage of their natural love of cold. I'll even share with you my tried and true secret for killing trolls. Intrigued? I hope so. Troll fat is a valuable commodity, and there's fortune and glory to be made for the ambitious troll hunter. Onward, then. Chapter 1. I just saw a troll. If you think you've seen a troll, remain calm and slowly back away. The wise hunter knows that preparation is the key to success, and you certainly don't want to hunt any trolls unprepared. Ah, but is it really a troll that you've spotted? The first step in your hunt is the proper identification of your quarry. Trolls are roughly man-shaped, with lengthy muscular arms that end in claw-tipped fingers. The creature's large mouth is filled with jagged teeth, all the better to crunch the bones of foolish hunters who didn't purchase my book. Without a doubt, the troll's most distinctive and unusual feature is the third eye nestled in the center of its forehead. A troll's hide is covered in thick, shaggy fur. The coloration of this fur varies by region. Cave troll fur is brownish in color, while a frost or snow troll will have a white coat. Chapter 2. Stop healing yourself. So, you've properly identified a troll, and now you're stalking the beast, ready to strike. You're in for a challenging battle, but a profitable one, assuming you survive. The first thing you'll notice is that trolls are incredibly fast and strong for their size. A troll likes to pummel its prey into submission with powerful arm strikes and claw attacks. For this reason, I strongly recommend a shield. If you're brave enough or foolish enough to fight a troll without using a shield, then you better be an expert at parrying with whatever weapon you've got. Trolls also have the ability to rapidly heal from their wounds. As such, you do not want to get into a prolonged fight with one. Speed and aggression are the key to beating a troll, because there is no creature in Tamriel that can outlast one. Of course, speed and aggression will only take you so far against an angry troll. This is where my secret weapon comes in. Chapter 3. Finn's secret weapon. Fire, my friend. Say the word and commit it to memory, for fire is the troll hunter's ultimate weapon. I cannot overstate the importance of fire in battling a troll. Even trolls that don't dwell in cold climates are vulnerable to fire. If you're unable to use fire magic, carry a weapon enchanted with arcane flames. Why is a troll vulnerable to fire? Rumor holds that the troll's regenerative abilities are less effective at healing burns. I don't really know the answer, but I can promise you this: fire works against trolls. This has been proved time and time again. Chapter 4, Trimming the Fat. The troll might be dead, but your job isn't finished just yet. Let the flames die down and then examine the troll's corpse. If you're lucky, you'll find some fat deposits that will fetch a good price in an apothecary shop. In fact, if you've got a knack for alchemy yourself, you can boil the fat down for use in all manner of potions and tonics. If you can find it, be sure to check the troll's den as well. Perhaps you'll find the remains of some foolish adventurer who was too cheap-minded to purchase this book. No doubt you can put this coin to a wiser use. Now you know everything that you need to make a living as wealthy and reputable troll hunter. Go on, then. Get out there and find yourself some trolls. Give me a second here. So I'm going to turn off that light over there. Yeah, one cross light. Save my energy bill. Alright. Good book there. A minor maze. I don't want to try Gemini. A minor maze. Shalador and Labyrinthian. Labyrinthia's modern notoriety was gained in the early part of the Third Era. Part of the Staff of Chaos was recovered from the Labyrinthian, which became instrumental in the overthrow of Yagar Thrawn, ending the Imperial Simulacrum. The site has since become embedded in the minds of all subjects of the Empire, and the ruins are occasionally visited by loyalist pilgrims, retracing the steps of the Eternal Champion. The namesake of Labyrinthia is somewhat less commonly known, however. The foreboding ruins were originally built as a temple to the dragons. This grew into Bormjumnar, a great city of that era. Bormjumnar is believed by some to have been the capital of Skyrim at the height of the dragon cult's influence there. Little historical record exists to verify or refute this, but it is known that the highest ranking priests of the cult met at Labyrinthia to discuss matters of ruling. I think I'm hearing stuff. One sec. This could be wind. Not. Okay. Bormjumnar crumbled, however, along with the rest of the dragon cult, and the site lay abandoned for many years, a deteriorating reminder of those benighted days for the Nords. Not until the days of Shalador would the ruins come into use again. Shalador the Archmage was famous for his exploits in the First Era. Various tales tell of him battling Dwemer legions single-handedly, building the city of Whitehold with a whispered spell, stealing the secret of life from Akatosh, and constructing Labyrinthian himself. While many Shalador legends are hyperbole or outright fabricated, we can discover some truth behind his involvement with Labyrinthia. Shalador stood at the forefront of a movement to enact higher standards among mages, and to discourage spell use among common castes. This effort is dubiously credited with the original organization and formation of the Schools of Magic, and the foundation of the College of Winterhold. Consistent with this mentality, Shalador constructed his labyrinth deep within the ruins of Bomjanar to test new archmages. While navigating the destroyed city itself was not explicitly a part of the test, many candidates did not survive the journey. Shalador valued both academic knowledge as well as practical skill, and simply getting to the labyrinth required the latter. Shalador's labyrinth is actually two intersecting mazes in an hourglass pattern. One maze could not be completed without exiting the other first, which makes the only existing instruction for the test especially mysterious. Enter twice, exit only once. Alternation will lead you to destruction. Only illusion shows the way to restoration. Conjure not, but be conjured instead. We can only guess at what the solution to the test may have been, as Labyrinthian became notorious not only for the number of potential archmages who died there, but for the intense secrecy of those who succeeded. Labyrinthian eventually ceased to be used, and it is regarded as a symbol of a more brutal age by modern institutions for magical studies. The ruins lay empty again, overrun with wild animals and avoided by travelers. The long history and legacy of this place, however, seems as likely to be erased from our minds as the ruins themselves are likely to sink into the sea. Interesting. That's working. Another book. The Legend of Red Eagle. Alright, The Legend of Red Eagle by Tredan Dren, Archivist of Winterhold. This tale was transcribed from the memory of Clarice Vane, student of Winterhold. Elements of the legend suggest a date circa First Era 1030, though as with any oral tradition, much of it is likely a later anachronism. Curiously, stories of a similar king and his legendary blade appear in other ancient myths of the Reach. Long ago, a child was born in the Sundered Hills. They named him Phelan, which means red eagle in the tongue of the Reach, for the screeching bird call that greeted his birth and the crimson blooms on the autumn hills. Thus began his legend. Reach child born under auspicious skies, his very name the color of blood. 10 kings ruled in the Reach in those days, and though men were free, the people were scattered and warred among themselves. The augurs foresaw the boy's destiny, a warrior without peer, first and foremost lord of the Reach, chosen to unite all under his name. Phelan grew in years and strength, and it seemed the prophecy would be fulfilled. The banner of the Red Eagle was raised along the cliffs of the Reach, and his people prospered. Then came Hestra, Empress of the South, riding to war. One by one the kings stood before her. One by one they fell aside, bending the knee in imperial bargains or slaughtered on the battlefield. Her legions came at last to the Sundered Hills, and envoys were sent to bargain for their surrender. Phelan refused to yield the freedom of his people, but the elders were afraid, cast him out, and accepted the imperial yoke. Thus was stolen by the foreign invaders his land, his people, his very name. In the years that followed, Red Eagle became known as the untamed spirit of the Reach, unbowed, unbroken, stained by the blood of his foes. He gathered loyal Reachmen to himself, those who clung to the old ways, who yearned for freedom, and forged a new nation. Together they fell upon the occupiers and the traitors by night, disappearing into the cliffs and caves each morn, invading, capture, It was not enough. For every Imperial patrol garrison they wiped out, yet more seemed to march from the green south to replace them. One night, under a cloud-choked sky, the men of the Red Eagle warmed themselves over damp fires of smoldering moss. A huddled, shambling figure came to them, cloaked in rags, face cowled. Though his men mocked and cast stones at the stranger, Phelan sensed something and beckoned. The cowl was thrown back in the dim light, and she revealed herself to be one of the ancient and venerable hag-ravens. She offered power for a price, and a pact was made. Thus was brokered to the witch his heart, his will, his humanity. From that day forth, his was a spirit of vengeance, pitiless and beyond remorse. The rebels grew in strength and numbers, and none could stand against them. Phelan's eyes burned coldly in those days, black opals reflecting a mind not entirely his own. 2 years passed, and the foreigners were all but driven from the Reach. Such peace could not last, however, and a great host fell upon them, a swift army of invaders unlike any before. For a fortnight, Hestra's generals laid siege to Red Eagle's stronghold, till he himself came forth for battle, alone and robed in nothing but his righteous fury. 1,000 foreigners fell before his flaming sword, and the enemy was routed. Yet when night fell, so too did he. The warriors who came to him said Phelan's eyes were clear again on that final night. He was taken to the place prepared for him, a tomb deep within the rock, hidden. With his remaining strength, he presented his sword to his people and swore an oath. Fight on, and when at last the Reach is free, his blade should be returned, that he might rise and lead them again. Thus was given for his people, his life, his dream, his sword. But when every debt is repaid in blood, these he shall reclaim once more. So is that like the origin of Forsworn, I think? Alright. Fine, ready to go. Okay, now we have Rising Threat, Volume 1. Alright. Rising Threat, Volume 1, by Lathanel by Sunhold. The following is the amount of Lathanel of Sunhold, an Altmer refugee from Somerset Isle, who came to Cyrodiil in the early years of the Fourth Era. According to Lathanel, he did not flee the aftermath of Oblivion, his crisis in Somerset. Rather, he fled the darkening shadow of the Thalmor upon my beloved homeland. Lathanel had a very intense presence, to put it politely. Some of his accusations of Thalmor involvement border on madness. This may be why his fervent warnings and outspoken criticisms of the Thalmor and the Aldmeri Dominion went unheeded. But history has at least partially vindicated Lathanel's claims. Praxis Aratium, Imperial Historian. I was barely more than a child when the great anguish fell upon us. The very air was torn asunder, leaving gaping, infected wounds that spewed Daedra from the bowels of oblivion. Many flocked to the shores, seeking escape from Dagon's murderous host. But the seas betrayed our people, raising up to smash our ships and our ports, leaving us to the fates so vile and wicked that death would seem a mercy. The Crystal Tower stood as our last bastion of hope in both the literal and figurative sense. Refugees filled the Crystal Tower until it could hold no more. I could taste the fear hanging in the air, feel the feel the pall of despair suffocating us. We could see the Daedra moving through the trees in the distance, but they did not come. Days passed, and still the Daedra would not approach within arrow shot of the battlements. Hope began to grow. They fear us, some would say. Even a Daedra knows not to trifle with the wisdom and magics of the crystal-like law. It was as if the foul denizens of oblivion had been waiting for this very spirit to stoke our hearts before they acted. As we slept, innumerable legions of Daedra amassed around us, and they were not alone. Hundreds of Altmer prisoners were gathered with them. As dawn broke, we were awoken by their screams as the Daedra began to flail them and to flay them. We watched in abject horror as our kinsfolk were defiled completely, carved up and eaten alive, impaled on their depraved war machines, and worried apart as meals for their profane beasts. This bloodletting was only a prelude to whet their appetites. Once the Daedra finished with our kinfolk, they turned their eyes to the Crystal Tower. Our great and noble bastion proved as much an impediment as a mighty oak to a landslide. Standing tall for but a few moments, appearing almost all able to ride the tide of destruction around it, but ultimately being swept away. Our exalted wizards decimated the fiends, roasting them by the dozens. Archers were finding the narrowest chinks in their Daedric armor at over 100 paces, felling their captains and commanders. The might and skillfulness of our heroic defenders was astonishing to behold, but it was not enough. The Daedra clambered over the corpses of their cohort. They marched headlong into death and destruction that would make the mightiest armies in all of Tamriel quake with fear. When they breached the walls, I fled along with the other cowards. I take no pride in that act. It has haunted my existence ever since, and I burn with shame to admit it. But it is the truth. We fled in mindless panic, abandoning those stalwart Altmer who held the line against the onslaught, to preserve and defend our illustrious Crystal Tower. We raced through cleverly concealed passageways and emerged well away from the chaos that had descended upon the tower. That is when it happened. It started like a gust rustling through the leaves of a dense forest, but the sound did not taper off. It rose like a roar as the very ground on which I stood began to shudder. I turned to look, and the world held its breath. I stood transfixed as the heart of my homeland was torn as if from my own breast. The unthinkable, the incomprehensible, the tower of crystal-like law cast to the ground with all the dignity of a beggar meeting the ironclad fist. An eternity I watched, trying to reconcile what I knew with what I saw. Sobs racked my chest, and the weeping filled the air around me as the spell loosened its hold, and I realized where I was. There were scores of other refugees mesmerized by the horror that had likewise ensorcelled them. "Go," I croaked out as the heart of my land, shattered. No one moved, not even me. I mustered with what will I could and bellowed all the fear and hatred and agony at what had just happened, turning the words into a mindless shriek. "Go!" I ran then, feeling more than seeing that the others had followed. Oh, cool. Is that something I'm going to learn and see in Oblivion? Maybe. That was only volume 1. Do I have all the other volumes here? Volume 4. Songs of Return. Gotta do some Songs of the Return. I can't read that other volume yet. Alright, that is volume 2. Songs of the Return, Volume 2, the first tale of the Darumzu. Our great Lord Ysgramor, the harbinger of us all, did then send forth his two beloved sons with him, the only other survivors of the brutalities of Sarthal, to seek out the bravest warriors of the land and mount the great return. Yingol and Yulgar were called, and they were known among Atmora as fine warriors with bright eyes and dawning futures. Yingol, the elder, was the brave strategist, bringing his learnings to bear on the battlefield, that his enemies would be defeated before they even know the battle had begun. Yulgar, the youngest, was possessed of an unwavering spirit that drove his singular prowess to overwhelming feats in war. Together, the mind and the arm, they were capable of sowing a destruction most thorough and glorious to any foe who stood before them. Before they parted ways to gather their crews, the two clasped arms and necks in the old-fashioned and laughed at the heavens for their stories to come. Young Yulgar then took to the massive shipyards of how do I say that? Jilkervik at the southern point, and commissioned 2 ships for himself and his brother. He would command Darumzi and his brother Harak, thus carrying the names of the 2 favored stars from their heavens. The shipmakers' spirits had been sustainably filled by Ysgramor's tales of the savage elves, and they set about to birth ships that befit their noble homeland. Arrangements having been made, Yulgar set forth to the academies of honored soldiers, seeking out his most trusted friends and advisors to join him on the venture of the return. By now, the stories of the new land to the south were spreading before him, and the mere emergence of his presence was enough to cause the finest warriors to lay down their present undertakings and follow him. So was he able to call to his side the great shield sisters, Fora and Grosta, who thought and spoke as one, and they brought with them the wise war teacher, Adrimik, who first taught them to dance among the blades. She, in turn, mustered all the students at her command, whose names were not yet made, but some of whom would one day be known. Hermesker, who threw his shield, Urlach, who breathes fire, Yamth the Greater, Merkildan, Ramth, and the far-sighted Yuch, who would see the first of many dawns. On the day of final passage, when the many-oathed fleet would last see the distant green summers of Athmora, the brothers were near in their father's wake, as the freshly joined 500 would eagerly press onwards towards Tamriel. Yulgar would see his well-minded brother smiling from afar across the waves, and they shouted war cries to each other, longing for the soon day when their assembled crews would draw the treacherous elf blood into the ground, which they would now claim for their own rights. But Kyne's ministrations are not to be taken lightly, and though her blessings gave wind to drive those brave sailors to their destiny, so too did her mighty tears fall to drive them apart. When the storm of separation first arose, young Ylgar had no fear, for his crew was strong and able, and their ship drove true through the forest of swells as though pulled by the rope of fate. When the skies cleared, Ylgar glimpsed again with new eyes the land of his past and future home. He knew his brother's vessel was not within his horizon. The Darumzu, arriving late, drew forth onto the sands, and Ylgar rushed to his father to seek word of his brother. The great Ysgramor, harbinger of us all, wept for his lost son, and sought comfort in the arms of his only remaining joy. The crew of the Harak became the first deaths among the 500, and Ylgar so enraged with love for his brother that his crew would soon be counted as first among the many noble and honored names in the companions. So I technically read that section out of order, the whole story of how the Nords came to Skyrim. Came to Tamriel, I should say. Alright, Songs of Return that. Songs of Return of Volume 19. Songs of Return, Volume 19, the second tale of the Ylgurmet. When that final battle at the Barren Pass was completed and the melting snow carried Elfblood back onto the sea, the crew of the Kal Kaz, the Sadon Wreath, and the most exalted crew of our Lord's ship, the Ylgurmet, at last parted ways, never to join shields again. They drew apart in that form, which is not a loss, but a gain in knowing one's heart can be carried in the chests of others. So great was the love that those first of the 500 had for each other, and most especially for the great Ysgramor, harbinger of us all. They pressed eastwards, seeking the sea. When they came upon the barrow of Yngel, the great mighty Ysgramor's son, who had fallen to the whims of kine rather than the treachery of the elves. Our Lord had not expected to lay eyes upon it again so soon, and his grief flowed anew at the sight of it, as a opened wound will bleed as it did when first received. His eyes turned to the south, where a river met the sea, and decreed that there would he and the crew of the Ylgurmet create a great city in monument to the glories of mankind, that from his palace he might always look upon the hill of his dear son's resting place, and feel that his line would know peace in this new home that was never known in Atmora. The elven captives were set to work, bringing forth stone and to build in their conqueror's fashion. As many elves died in the building of the city as had the crew of the Ylgurmet slain, while on the way to its site, and Ysgramor drove the wretches even more, to build higher, to lay a claim to the river, so that none might pass into the interior of this land without first showing due respect to its mighty claimant. Thus was the great bridge constructed, forever striding the river, that no elf might sneak through to avenge his devious cousins. As the bridge was built long, so too was the palace built high, spires reaching the sky, to show dominion even over our very the very winds that had brought forth such a grief. In the deep hollows beneath the city, a great tomb was prepared for the day when Lord Ysgramor, harbinger of us all, would be called home to glory in Sovngarde. But as we know, he chose instead to be buried on the shore, facing towards Atmora. That though his heart lived and died in this new land, it would forever yearn for the beauties and still green Atmora before the freezing took it. Thus was founding of Windhelm, the city of kings, though her history is long and her glories did not end with her founder. I thought it was Windhelm. I was like debating on whether that was talking about Windhill or Solitude, but yeah, it's Windhelm. Alright, what book next? I don't think I can read The Rising Threat yet. I haven't read. Okay. The Ethereum Wars. Alright. Making progress. The Ethereum Wars by Taron Dreth, dedicated to Katria, my friend and my colleague. The end, when it came, was swift. In the span of 3 short years, the great dwarven cities of Skyrim, from Markarth to Velothi Mountains, fell before the armies of the High King cities. Cities that had held fast against the Nords for over 100 years crumbled abruptly and without warning. For centuries, scholars have marveled at the sudden collapse of the Dwemer states. Even the Nords seem to have been taken by surprise, though their chroniclers were quick to ascribe their success to King Galir's inspiring tactics and the blessing of Shor. My research suggests a much different cause, however. In the decades preceding their fall, the dwarven cities of Skyrim had been decimated by internal disputes and infighting over a most surprising cause, the Ethereum. Modern scholars know Ethereum as a rare luminous blue crystal found in some Dwemer ruins. Most consider it little more than a curiosity, as it has proved all but impossible to work with. While it has a strong magical aura, it is alchemically inert, and no known process can enchant, smelt, mold, bind, or break it. To the dwarves, of course, such problems were merely a challenge. In the years following King Harald's reign, the Dwemer discovered a considerable source of Ethereum in their deepest delvings. An alliance of 4 cities, led by Arkingthams, the great research center in the Southern Reach, was formed to oversee its extraction, processing, and study at a new Ethereum forge constructed to smelt it under precise controlled conditions. If the inscriptions I discovered are to be believed, the results were nothing short of spectacular. The items produced by the forge were artifacts of immense power, imbued from the moment of their creation with powerful enchantments. The Dwarven alliance shattered almost immediately, as the 4 city-states and their rivals attempted to claim the forge. We can only speculate that none were successful. Decades of conflict merely weakened them all, allowing for King Galir's subsequent conquests. And though the Dwemer reclaimed most of their lands in a century later, there is no evidence that they ever resumed their research on Ethereum. Perhaps the costs had just been too great. But nothing like the Ethereum forge described in the inscriptions has ever been found within the borders of Skyrim. It may have been destroyed long ago by the Nord invaders or the Dwemer themselves. Or perhaps it, like the secrets of Ethereum itself, still remain to be discovered. Oh, okay, cool. So that's how I find stuff about that. Gods and worship. Okay. An overview of Gods and Worship in Tamriel by Brother Hetchfeld. Editor's note: Brother Hedgefeld is an associate scribe at the Imperial University Office of Introductory Sciences. Gods are commonly judged among the evidence of their interest in worldly matters. A central belief in the active participation of deities in mundane matters can be challenged by the reference to apparent apathy and indifference on the part of gods during times of plague or famine. From intervention in legendary quests to manifestations in common daily life, no pattern for the gods of Tamriel activities is readily perceived. The concerns of gods in many ways may seem unrelated or best unconcerned with daily trials of the mortal realm. The exceptions do exist, however. Many historical records and legends point to the direct intervention of one or more gods at times of great need. Many heroic tales recount blessings of the divinity bestowed upon heroic figures who worked or quested for the good of a deity or the deity's temple. Some of the more powerful artifacts in the known world were originally bestowed upon their owners through such reward. It has also been reported that priests of high ranking in their temples may on occasion call upon their deity for blessings or help in time of need. The exact nature of such contact and the blessings bestowed is given to much speculation, as the temples hold such associations secret and holy. This direct contact gives weight to the belief that the gods are aware of the mortal realm. In many circumstances, however, these same gods will do nothing in the face of suffering and death, seeming to feel no need to interfere. It is thus possible to conclude that we, as mortals, may not be capable of understanding more than a small fraction of the reasoning and logic such beings use. One defining characteristic of gods and goddesses is their interest in worship and deeds. Deeds in the form of holy quests are just one of the many things that bring the attention of a deity. Deeds in everyday life, by conforming to the statutes and obligations of individual temples, are commonly supposed to please a deity. Performance of ceremony in a temple may also bring a deity's attention. Ceremonies vary according to the individual deity. The results are not always apparent, but sacrifice and offerings are usually required to have any hope of gaining a deity's attention. While direct intervention in daily temple life has been recorded, the exact nature of the presence of a god in daily mundane life is a subject of controversy. A tradition saying of the wood elves is that one man's miracle is another man's accident. While some gods are believed to take an active part of daily life, others are well known for their lack of interest in temporal affairs. It has been theorized that gods do in fact gain strength from such things as worship, through praise, sacrifice, and deed. It may even be theorized that the number of worshippers a given deity has may reflect on his overall position among the other gods. This is my own conjecture garnered from the apparent ability of the larger temples to attain blessings and assistance from their god with greater ease than smaller religious institutes. There are reports of the existence of spirits in our world that have the same capacity to use the actions and deeds of mortals to strengthen themselves as do the gods. The understanding of the exact nature of such creatures would allow us to understand with more clarity the connection between a deity and the deity's worshippers. The implication of the existence of such spirits leads to the speculation that these spirits may even be capable of raising themselves to the level of a god or a goddess. Matuzo, the Imperial Seminary, has suggested that these spirits may be the remains of gods and goddesses who, through time, lost all or most of their following, reverting to their earliest, most basic form. Practitioners of the old ways say that there are no gods, just greater and lesser spirits. Perhaps it is possible for all three theories to be true. Interesting. I need agua. Alright, ready. How long have I been reading for now? Oh, I've been reading a long time. Because I did take a little bit of a break. Ugh. Yeah, this is basically going to be it might be an episode or two from this one where I just get through Whiterun's libraries, but we're making headway. You know? The Oblivion Crisis. Do I read this? Or do I be... I mean... the game's been out for years, so... Okay. The Oblivion Crisis. By Praxis Sarcorum, Imperial Historian. At the turning of the Fourth Age in the year Third Era 433, the Emperor Uriel Septim VII was assassinated and the Amulet of Kings was destroyed. This set in motion a chain of events that would bring down an empire and change forever the relationship between man and the gods. The assassins first attacked the Emperor in the White Gold Tower, while the Blades held them back. The Emperor made his way down to the dungeons to a secret escape route built into one of the prison cells. For reasons known only to himself, the Emperor pardoned the fortunate prisoner in that cell. Some say the prisoner reminded him of a childhood friend. Others say it was a moment of prophecy. Whatever the case, the prisoner came to play a fatal role in the history of the Empire and Tamriel, surely a sign that the gods themselves were at work. The pursuing assassins killed the Blade's bodyguards in relentless series of sneak attacks. Eventually, they struck down the Emperor himself. Before he fell, Uriel Septim VII gave the Amulet of Kings to the prisoner, who somehow made it out of the Imperial sewers and into the light of day. The assassination is now known to have been the work of a group of Daedric cultists known as the Mystic Dawn. Those who still suspect the Dark Brotherhood should consider two facts. First, they would have only needed a single assassin, not a small army of them. Second, the Dark Brotherhood would never be so foolish as to effectively declare war on the Empire, and thus ensure their complete destruction. Witness the eventual fate of the Mystic Dawn. The Amulet of Kings next surfaced at Waynon Priory next to Chorrol. Geoffrey, secret Grandmaster of the Blades and head of the Priory, took possession of the amulet. The messenger was sent off to Kvatch to find a lowly priest named Martin. Unbeknownst even to himself, Martin was the bastard son of Uriel Septim VII, and the last heir to the Ruby Throne. He alone could use the Amulet of Kings to light the dragon fires that wards the barrier between Tamriel and Oblivion, and save the world from the Mythic Dawn plot. The prisoner arrived at Kvatch to find it overrun by Daedra, who had poured in from a newly opened Oblivion Gate, the start of the empire-spanning devastation of the Oblivion Crisis. How the prisoner closed the gate is not recorded. Once closed, Martin and the surviving Kvatch guardsmen drove back to the Daedra, now known as the hero of Kvatch. The prisoner and Martin returned to Waynon Priory, only to find the priory sacked and the amulet taken. Geoffrey survived the attack, however, and the three of them made their way to Cloud Ruler Temple, Bastion of the Blades. This secret fortress in the mountains outside Brumra was where Martin was held safe while the hero of Kvatch searched for the lost amulet. Knowing only that a mysterious group called the Mythic Dawn was behind the assassination and theft of the amulet, the hero of Kvatch was sent to locate the cult. With the help of Boris, a blade in the service of the Emperor, they somehow used the commentaries on the Mysterium Xarxes and esoteric works by the madman Mankar Cameron to direct them to the Mythic Dawn's secret lair. Scholars familiar with the commentaries claim the location is not directly mentioned in them. How they did this remains a mystery. No official records exist of how the hero of Kvatch penetrated the Mythic Dawn's lair near Lake Arius. There is a heroic bardic tale that claims the hero used trickery and disguise, but that is just speculation. What was discovered there is that Mankar Cameron was behind the Mythic Dawn, and that the group worshipped the Daedric prince Maroon's Dagon. Mankar Cameron believed himself to be a direct descendant of Cameron Usurper, the infamous pretender to the throne of Valenwood. Somehow the hero escaped with the Mysterium Xarxes itself, the holy book of the Mythic Dawn cult. Mankar Cameron fled to oblivion with the Amulet of Kings. With some effort and great risk to his sanity, Martin deciphered the Mysterium Xarxes and intended to use it to open a gateway to Mankar Cameron in order to recover the Amulet of Kings. Before Martin could perform the ritual to open the gateway, Maroon's Dagon opened an oblivion gate outside Burma. The hero of Kvatch saved the city and Martin by entering the gate and closing it before the Daedric siege engine could destroy Burma and Cloud Ruler Temple. Many songs and stories have been told of this battle, and I will not retell them here. The hero of Kvatch was now also known as the Savior of Burma. With the city and Cloud Ruler Temple safe, Martin opened the portal to Mankar Cameron's paradise. The details of what transpired in this place have not been recorded. All that is known is that the Savior of Burma traveled to this paradise, killed Mankar Cameron, and returned with the Amulet of Kings. With the amulet in hand, Martin Septim presented himself to the Elder Council to be crowned Emperor of all Tamriel. Once crowned, he planned to relight the dragon fires and seal Tamriel from oblivion. In a last-ditch effort to stop him, Maroon's Dagon launched an assault on the imperial city, opening several oblivion gates within the capital itself. Uncrowned, Martin joined the battle in the city streets. Maroon's Dagon himself left oblivion and entered Tamriel, breaking the covenant. Only the unlit dragon fires allowed this to be possible. Now that the barrier was ripped asunder, it was too late to relighting the fires. Martin Septim chose to make the ultimate sacrifice. He shattered the Amulet of Kings to become the avatar of the god of Akatosh and do battle with Maroon's Dagon. Records of this battle vary widely. What we do know is that Maroon's Dagon was defeated and sent back to oblivion. The avatar of Akatosh was turned to stone and can be seen to this day in the Temple of the One in the Imperial City. With the amulet gone, the dragon fires quenched, and the last Dragonblood Emperor dead, the barrier to oblivion is sealed forever. So that was a complete retelling of Oblivion, which I haven't played yet. I want to. I mean, there's probably a lot of side missions that didn't talk about. That was a little bit of spoilers for myself. I mean, okay. There's still a lot of stuff that I haven't done yet. Ugh. All right, where am I at? Where am I at? I think I could do 2 more books. Let's see, Oblivion Graces. We did 1 bookshelf. We got another bookshelf here. Killing. Before you're killed. It's kill or be killed. Knowing Before You're Killed by Eduardo Corvus. I've seen many a man rush headlong into battle only to have their life cut short in an instant. I've been a trainer of the warrior arts for many spans, cut from the cloth of a great lineage of knights, blades, and even a distant cell sword or two. It's with this knowledge that I'll try to pen a brief treatise on the subtle art of war. Not mage fire, not archery, nor criminal throat slitting, but war. Man on man with nothing but a fine bit of steel between them. First thing you'll need to learn is how to block. The best way not to get killed is not to let the other man hit you. Use a shield, use it well. Now you'll get tired from this. You may even get a little hurt, but a blocked blow is much better than a landed one. Over time, you'll get better, eventually shrugging off even the mightiest hits. But beware, your foes, if they're not base cur bandits, will know how to counter you. They'll hit you with everything they've got in order to open you up and keep on hitting. So watch for these powerful attacks. While it's still better to absorb the impact with a quarter-inch steel, it's best to try to just step out of the way. Remember, against spells, your blocking is useless until you're trained. So get up on mages quickly and let them eat steel. Deserves them right for using a witch weapon. You can also block without a shield as well. Just cross that blow with your sword, though this isn't as nearly as effective. And if you decide you're fancy and want to wield two blades, you can't block at all, so don't even try. Without both hands on the hilt, you just won't have the strength to counter blows. But with a weapon in each hand, you are much more likely to take your opponent down quickly. The best defense, some say. To wield the blade, there are some fundamentals. Quick strikes are always good and can be repelled, so watch for your opponent's own defensive postures. Wait for an opening, or create one with your own heavy attacks. Hammers hit hardest but are slow. Same with maces and any blunt weaponry. Axes are nice middle ground, while swords are quickest but won't stagger your opponent as effectively with the hard hits. Keep an eye on not to get too exhausted. Always try to save a little of your strength to counter blows, or even run. Keep moving during the fight. Never let yourself get cornered or surrounded. Pick your threats. Weak spellcasters that can hurt you quick are the first things I fell. The shield is not only a defensive tool. Put your shoulder to it and bash your opponent. This sends them flying and opens them up for quick counter assaults. Even better, put extra weight into it and power bash your opponent. If they're small, this will put them on their knees. Bigger opponents can not be staggered by heavy attacks. Only the power bash will really knock them around and create openings for you to exploit. So again, block, counter, bash. Hit them when they're down. They'll show no mercy, so why should you? Battle is about the offense, about catching your foe early and never relenting. Keep moving, keep swinging. If you consider yourself overly powerful, pick up a two-handed weapon and see your foes fall before you like wheat stalks. They're slow and unwieldy, but they shatter bones and cleave flesh better than anything. The graves are filled with many a mediocre swordsman. If you don't have the stomach for war, try a monk's work. But if you do travel the path of the warrior, learn the basics and keep your head firmly planted on your shoulders, or someone's bound to lob it off. Wise words, though I don't think I'll be following them. Alright, I can't read that. I think I've read volume 7 already. Okay. Yeah, read 7. Read that. Mysterious Akavir. So I think I'll read this one and then call it quits. Ugh. It's either this one or one more. Though I did step away a bit, so I do have some more time, I suppose. Mysterious Akavir. Akavir means Dragonland. Tamriel means Dawn's Beauty. Atmora means Elderwood. Only the Red Guards know what Yakuda means. Akavir is the kingdom of the beasts. No men or mer live in Akavir, though men once did. These men, however, were eaten long ago by the vampiric serpent folk of Sainsik. Had they not been eaten, these men would have eventually migrated to Tamriel. The Nords left Atmora for Tamriel. Before them, the elves had abandoned Aldmiris for Tamriel. The Red Guards destroyed Yakuda so they could make their journey. All men in Myr know Tamriel is the nexus of creation, where the last war will happen, where the gods unmade Lorkhan and left their adamantian towers of secrets. Who knows what the Akaviri think of Tamriel? But ask yourself, why have they tried to invade it 3 times or more? There are 4 major nations of Akavir, of Kamal, Sansik, Kangmo, and Kapotun. When they are not busy trying to invade Tamriel, they are fighting with each other. Kamal is snow hell. Demons live there, armies of them. Every summer they thaw out and invade Thangmo, but the brave monkey folk always drive them away. Once Adasum der Kamal, a king among demons, attempted to conquer Morrowind, but Almalexia and the Underking destroyed him at Red Mountain. Xaxik is Snake Palace, once the strongest power in Akvir, before the tiger dragon came. The serpent folk ate all of the men of Akvir a long time ago, but still kind of look like them. They are tall, beautiful, if frightening, covered in golden scales, and immortal. They enslave the goblins of the surrounding isles, who provide labor and fresh blood. The holdings of Xaxik are widespread. When natives of Tamriel think of Akviri, they think of the serpent folk, because one ruled the Cyrodiilic Empire for 400 years in the previous era. He was Potenent Versidu Shai, assassinated by the Morag Thong. Tangmo is the Thousand Monkey Isles. There are many breeds of monkey folk, and they are all kind, brave, simple, and many are also very crazy. They can raise armies when they must, for all of the other Akaviri nations have, at one time or another, tried to enslave them. They cannot decide who they hate more, the snakes or the demons. But ask one and he will probably say snakes. Though once bitter enemies, the monkey folk are now allied with the tiger folk of Kapotun. Kapotun is the tiger dragon's empire. The cat folk are ruled by the divine Tosh-Raka, the tiger dragon. They are now a very great empire, stronger than Tsetski, though not at sea. After the serpent folk ate all the men, they tried to eat all the dragons. They managed to enslave the red dragons, but the black ones had fled to then Potun. A great war was raged, which left both the cats and the snakes weak, and the dragons all dead. Since that time, the cat folk had tried to become the dragons. Tashraka is the first to succeed. He is the largest dragon in the world, orange and black, and he has many new ideas. first, Tostraka says, is that we kill all the vampire snakes. Then the tiger dragon emperor wants to invade Terramreal. Okay. Is that like a... Is that supposed to be like a very Asiatic style province, area, continent? You know? So it's like, you know, very Eastern. You know, China, Japan, all that jazz. Is that what it's supposed to... Okay, I think I'm tired. My eyes are like, ah! Alright. We're making progress with this. Still a lot of other books to go. But we're getting there. I think we're getting a really good chunk out of all the stuff for this. So I think it's going to be at least another episode or two, because there are more books out in the Whiterun hold here for me to get through. But it is my goal to read every single book in Skyrim. So yeah, we are making good progress. I think I'd have to count, but we're getting through it. Still a long list to get through, but we're getting it. Oh, I'm repeating myself, it's tiring. Okay, well, hope you enjoyed my narration. Drop back in for next time. I'll continue my reading. And then once I am done reading, we're actually going to be going to, what is it, Bleak Falls Barrow to get the Dragonstone. I know I'm taking my sweet time with that, but it is my quest. Alright. Well, everybody, take care, and join me next time for some more reading here in Whiterun. Alright. See you guys later. Ciao, ciao.